Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So today we'll be discussing the great master, the alternate class, as I've repeated many times. It's not possible to understand the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna unless it is read or understood in the light of Sri Ramakrishna's life. So also the life cannot be understood without his teachings. Of course, in the great master, you will find a lot of teachings which will be found in the gospel, but not all, because Swami Shardanand had other sources from which he gathered his material and wrote such a unique biography. Now, what's the reason why we need to do sadhana? That was very clearly explained, but let us just recapitulate. Shardanand is very clear, unequivocal when he says that sadhana is something that enables us to connect with our real self, the supreme self, which is the real self. If you remember, Swami Vivekananda gave a wonderful talk. All his Jnana Yoga lectures were delivered most of them were delivered in London. And in the Princess Hall, the famous Princess Hall, and at Oakley Street, some of them were delivered at Oakley Street. So in that series of talks, which later on were published in book form as Jnana Yoga, even while he was alive, before his passing away, there's one important lecture which is titled as The Real and the Apparent Man. So as, of course, man implies human beings, man or woman. So what is a real man and what is an apparent man? So to understand that, Swami Shardanji has made it very clear that the apparent man is what is a composite of several factors which we discuss in our Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, which we discuss every Saturday, every alternative Saturday. So in that we clearly saw that what constitutes Prakriti, which is also another form of understanding the apparent man or the apparent human being, the apparent nature of our personality, which is Prakriti. And as opposed to that, we have the Purusha, which is our real self, the Paramatma, the Atma. There are so many names. And if you find, sadhana is nothing but trying to slowly, gradually, because it's not possible to understand that one is the self or the Paramatma or the Purusha all of a sudden. Prakriti has her own way of playing with us. And it's, after all, that is the scheme of life. So the Prakriti has two aspects. One is Vidya Maya, or Prakriti, or Maya, or you may say nature. One is Vidya Maya, another is Avidya Maya. Both are the powers of nature or powers of the Divine Mother, if we can term her that way. So one takes you away from Purusha, another takes you towards Purusha. So Adhyatma, the word Adhyatma in Sanskrit, spirituality has a wonderful word. When we say spirituality in English, it really means, of course, it means that something dealing with the spirit. But that very idea of spirit is not very clear. Similarly, when you say Adhyatma, Adhi means towards. Our journey towards our Atman or real self. The real self as opposed to the apparent self. So getting involved more and more in Maya means holding on to that apparent self and identifying ourselves with that apparent self more and more. So it's a very simple definition Swami Shardananji gives. Now, of course, Swami Vivekananda also, throughout his Gyan Yoga lectures, he emphasizes this point that in a way, our spirituality is something that takes you towards the spirit. As Jesus said, the kingdom of spirit is within you, and that the kingdom of God is within you, and that kingdom is the kingdom of the spirit. So in that sense, spirit is understood as Purusha in Sankhya, or Brahman in Vedanta, or as God, or there are so many names. So all sadhana, whether it is according to Vedanta or according to yoga, according to any other religion, is an effort of the apparent man to move away from that apparent reality and move towards the real self, which is the Atma. So Adhi Atma means moving towards the Atma. That is Adhyatma, that is spirituality. And if we go in the opposite direction, obviously we are taking the wrong path. So that in brief was described by Swami Shardananji in the second chapter. So he said, before we discuss, first of all, he is asking the question, why should we discuss the sadhana part of an incarnation? Does he have to do sadhana like us? Then what's the difference between us and an avatara? An avatara is supposed to have been born perfect. Like Swami Vivekananda, Swami Thakur or Sri Ramakrishna himself says, he was born perfect. He had no karma to work out. Even the Ishwar Kotis, he said, they just come. But there's a thing known as the divine play, or the Leela Prasanga, as this book is, the original Bengali title reads as Leela Prasanga. That's why Chaitananda's new translation literally says that this title, the title of this book, rather than Great Master, should be the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. Because that is the literal translation of the book Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga. So after having made very clear that it is a Leela, obviously the question may arise, then how can you describe Sri Ramakrishna as a sadhaka? That means he is just play acting. That is the question which many of the readers, he anticipated the readers might ask him, or the people may ask him, if he is just enacting a Leela, what do we have to learn from that? Because he's already free. He's just enacting a drama. Just as there is a film actor who is supposed to play the role he has been assigned. He has nothing to do with the character. He may be a very good man, but he may have to play the role of a villain or an evil person. That doesn't take away from him his original nature as a human being. He may be one of the most decent human beings. But why there is a need for an avatara to even to do sadhana? And Swami Shardanji says, in most other incarnations, including Jesus, so much emphasis is given on their teachings, on their miracles, the blessings that they gave, how they raised humanity, raised the ordinary people, and inspired them to follow a divine life. All those things are discussed. That is the later part of their life is discussed. But very hardly you will find the struggles, except in the case of maybe Buddha, where a brief hint is given, but nobody, even in his biography, has emphasized the sadhana part, because many of the devotees, because of their own weakness, they do not like to attribute human struggles to their beloved incarnation. They think he's a supernatural. He is, of course, he is an avatara. That is why he's not a jiva. He might be an Ishwar Koti or a avatara himself, the incarnation. So you can't attribute weaknesses to him. That is obvious. Every devotee would like to, even their own teacher, they would not like to attribute any human weaknesses. They are so, if you just, some religions, they are so particular that if you just slightly even try to criticize their prophets, they'll just go after you. So they do not like to attribute any kind of human struggles or motives to these avatars or incarnations or prophets, because they fear that if we do that, if that is done, then it may diminish their devotion. We hold him in great esteem, our Ishta, because of his glory, because of his greatness. So what's the fun in discussing his sadhana? And why does he have to struggle like us? Why does he have to take up a human body like us, first of all? And why does he have to struggle and show apparently the same types of weaknesses which we have, and show the way to overcome those weaknesses? That is exactly what Swami Shardanji is discussing. He said, we don't criticize such people. Shardanji says, we don't criticize them, because if they feel it diminishes their devotion, let them think of their God as perfect, as many religions would believe. Their prophets, you can't even point out a single thing. You can't point out anything. Even if there is something which appears as weakness, you have no right to even discuss or even criticize, leave alone criticize. You can't even discuss or ask. So Swami Shardanji is not against that, because if their faith is so weak that a little bit of discussion disturbs their devotion, then it is fine, let them follow their path. But if the devotee is really strong, if he is really mature, he says only the immature devotees will ascribe that kind of greatness or that kind of perfection to an incarnation. Then the next question is, why does he assume, even if it is a Leela, or it is a divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, why does he have to embrace all these imperfections, even if it is just a play? The reason he gives is that sets an example to the devotees. It sets a wonderful example, as that in the same situation, suppose I find myself in that same situation, I'll just follow what my ideal or Ishta has shown me. So to show the path, that is one explanation. That is what he's trying to discuss, that as the devotion matures, he's not bothered. He's not bothered by any of the things which are said. See, even the gopis, for example, their devotion is supposed to be the highest. They were not bothered at all. Many people used to tell them, see, what kind of friend is your Krishna? You beloved is your Krishna. You are given everything to him, and he has not even come back to even visit you even once. You all know that after leaving Vrindavan, he never came back. He was in, and every time some people used to come from Dwaraka, these gopis would ask, how is our Krishna? Is he eating well? They still had the same love for him, because their love was really mature. They did not bother whether he is paying attention to them, because that was the highest form of love. That's why you will find Krishna deliberately sends Narada, who was boasting that he was the greatest devotee. He said, go and visit the Vrindavan, gopis of Vrindavan. Then when he goes there, he realizes how much, how devoted, how far. They never uttered anything. Just they wanted to know that our Krishna, whether Krishna is near them. They did not want anything from him. His welfare was their only goal. Whereas Narada felt extremely selfish, that I am praying to, remembering Narayana or remembering Krishna all the time. When these people, they are also remembering Krishna, but not for themselves, but for his welfare. So their love is far, far more superior than ours. So that kind of maturity, Shardanji says, till that kind of maturity comes, we will always question and will try to hide. So he says there's no reason why we should not discuss the sadhana. And most of the incarnations biographies, maybe it's a deliberate attempt on the part of the devotees or the followers to show that our incarnation has absolutely no imperfection. Neither, because they don't feel, they hold on, their devotion is immature. So all the sadhana, he points out, all the sadhana part of what Jesus did before he delivered the Sermon on the Mount, where was he missing? There's a huge gap in his life where his sadhana is not explained. I mean, what he did, how much, what did he fast? Did he do penance? There are so many stories. A little bit we know about Buddha, how he struggled, how he met so many gurus, how he passed through so many tribulations and finally settled down under the Bodhi tree. At least we know something. But there are most of the other prophets, they come and deliver a message by divine right. And any kind of human effort or any kind of human weakness, if you ascribe to them, that is blasphemy. So anyway, that is after discussing that, he's giving the example of Yashoda. I gave you the example of Gopi. Yashoda is another example. The foster mother, she was not actual mother. Devaki was the real mother. So she used to every day practically, if you see the childhood of Sri Krishna, Gopala, as he used to be called as Gopala, very endearingly she used to call her Gopala, and every day she nurtured him as if he was her own son. That is okay. That motherly love he had for Krishna. So she was not least bothered. Many times he used to show wonderful visions to her, but they were nothing to her. Sometimes she used to feel concerned that he's eating, when he was a baby, he was crawling. He used to eat something on the, some mud or something. So she was worried as a mother. So I said, open your mouth. So Krishna used to just smile, apart from butter and other things, nice things. She used to scold him for that also, but she once caught him that he was eating something which is not hygienic, or maybe some mud. And in fact, he had done that. So then she said, then Krishna was very, naughty. So he said, no, I have not eaten. I have not eaten anything. He said, no, open your mouth. I want to see. And when he opens the mouth, she gets a vision where she sees the entire universe, galaxies. For a moment, she's dazed. But then after that, Krishna smiles and closes his mouth. He gave her a glimpse of his divine nature, but at the same time, when she was surprised, he made her forget that. And then again, she started scolding him and behaving as if he's a normal human child. So every day, Shardanji says, the highest form of devotion was demonstrated by Yashoda, who, knowing fully well, accepted Gopala with all his limitations, with all his pranks, with all his naughtiness, naughty behavior, as if he's his own child. So that kind of endearing relationship with Lord is a much higher form of devotion than considering him to be great with lot of powers. This you will find in the gospel hundreds of times. In fact, in the last gospel class, we were discussing the six. We didn't start that that conversation. The six were who used to work in the ammunition factory near Dakshineshwar once came, and they had great respect for Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna was very curious to know, how do you worship God in your religion? So they were just saying that he has created this, like most of the prophets say, he's the creator, he has created the universe. We have to thank him for our daily bread, without knowing what this daily bread is. People take it literally. We thank the Lord for giving us our daily bread. We just take the bread to be little. The bread is the thing that sustains you, that spiritual sustenance is what is meant by the bread. But for common people, if he gives bread, or maybe even better, if he gives a cake, we thank the Lord for that. So all this external glory, according to a true devotee, means nothing to the devotee. They didn't bother whether Sri Krishna was a king in Dwarka or whether he was a humble charioteer of Arjuna. They were not even bothered. They just wanted to know. If you see that conversation, wonderful conversation, Anybody coming remotely connected with the Dwarka or the place where Sri Krishna was, if they used to come to Vrindavan, they'll first ask, how is our Krishna? How is his health? Is he keeping well? They just wanted, they didn't even bother whether he has become rich, or whether he has become a king, or whether he has got all the power, how many demons he has killed. Absolutely nothing. That is one-sided, absolute devotion, like Yashoda. So, he says, the external glory means nothing. Where does this kind of devotion come from? It comes from the deep feeling that the world of the spirit is far, far, far greater than the external glory and the external weaknesses or the evil that you see around you. Because that is a permanent solution. You see, that's why Swami Yatiswaran used to say that we desperately look to solve our human problems by human methods, by the methods that work in the world. But if you see it, the ultimate analysis, it is every human problem or every problem of the world has only a eternal spiritual solution, never a worldly solution. Worldly solution is some kind of patchwork which will enable you to push the inevitable, just postpone it, just as we give medicines to just stop the influx of the disease. It can control it, but it can never cure it. So there is no permanent solution except in the world of spirit, which the world of spirit offers. So if there is a spiritual solution, it has to be an eternal one. And to demonstrate that in the world of conflict, in the world of change, in the world of transitoriness, it is only the spirituality that survives. So that is one of the main goals of a prophet. And he has to demonstrate it himself. He has to take all the weaknesses. He took the disease. How can a person remember God when one has a disease? You see, he had cancer. In fact, people misunderstood. Said, even if he's an incarnation, how can he have these diseases? They expect the glory to be external. By the same argument, people who saw Jesus thought that if a person cannot prevent himself to be crucified from being crucified, how can he be a prophet? But those who had real devotion knew that it is not the body or the external greatness that really matters. Being one with the I and my Father are one. The spirit that is his identification with the spirit or the Atman is what makes him stand out as an incarnation or as a prophet. So Shraddhanji says there are many such examples to show that incarnations, prophets, they take up human limitations for the benefit of the devotees. And if the devotee or the followers are true followers, mature followers, for them that is also important. Whereas for immature followers who feel that by seeing all these things, in fact, you see Sri Ramakrishna, when he had cancer, all the useless devotees were filtered out. So Shraddhanji has also analyzed that. He said the Kashipur days was a period when all the superfluous devotees were just, those who had come for some worldly gain, they were filtered out. Only the genuine stayed. They understood. They could read behind the master's illness. They could understand the true import or the true purpose of an incarnation, why he incarnates. So, Sri Ramakrishna gives advice. So, the new heading which we are going to discuss today, why should we not, like the Sikhs said, then that the whole God, the sun, the moon, the creation, everything is so splendorous. That is why we glorify our Lord. So Thakur says something very significant. He said it may be glory for you. For the Lord, it is nothing. So what is his advice? Now this is taken from the gospel, but Shardanji explains, as usual, he explains by giving an example from Sri Ramakrishna's own life. That is why his life is his message. You can't separate the two. That is why many of the people feel that is it not enough if we just read the gospel, which is much more easier to understand, much more easier text to follow, rather than this divine play or the great master, where like a lawyer, he is arguing, he's putting counter arguments and trying to express doubts which some people might have, and how, like a lawyer, is satisfying every curiosity, every misunderstanding, and analyzing the life so beautifully. So without that, we cannot even meditate on the greatness of Sri Ramakrishna while just reading his teachings. But here you see, he is trying to explain his point. He is giving an example. First, he will give a quotation of Sri Ramakrishna from the gospel. What was his advice to such devotees? He said, the experience of God's splendor destroys an intimate, loving relationship with him. So it's very significant to understand. Yashoda did not want the experience of God's splendor. That will take Krishna away from her. She would not be able to love Gopala with all his limitations, with all his naughtiness, with all his pranks and all. She just wanted him to be her son. So is that a higher state? He says, experience of God's splendor, in fact, is an obstruction in your spiritual life. It destroys an intimate, loving relationship with him, which is far more important. And that's why he says, never disrupt anyone's spiritual attitude. So he's explaining what it means. Now, if somebody says, like the gopis did, that we are concerned, oh, he must not be getting proper food, who is looking after him, are they feeding him? And you may disturb their attitude, Narada, by talking philosophy that he is the Purusha, he is the all-powerful God. It doesn't mean anything to them. And Thakur himself says, you are just disrupting. By talking of the glory of the Lord, I mean the external glory of the Lord, you are actually separating him or distancing him from yourself. His place is within you as a loving relationship which you should have with him, that will suffer. So that is a very important point. So he says, when devotees fervently ask the Master, Sri Ramakrishna, to grant them the vision of a particular manifestation of God's majestic power, he would tell them, look, I mean, many people, right from childhood, they have fascination for a particular form of God. Even Shardanji himself was very much fascinated with Ganesha. So when Thakur used to ask everybody, who is your ideal? Then he said, it's Ganesha. I want to be like him, because he appreciated him because of his devotion to his mother. Ganesha was very devoted, unlike Karthik. He was very devoted to his mother. So that was one quality. He perhaps loved his mother, equally devotedly. And he said, and the second thing is he was a celibate, obviously. He was a brahmachari. So that ideal of brahmacharya and obedience to the mother, these two characteristics he found in Ganesha. So he immediately said, Ganesha is my ideal. But Thakur said, no, Ganesha is not your ideal. Of course, there were reasons why he said that, and he suggested a different. But that's not the point. He used to advise devotees. Many of the devotees were just hankering for a vision of that form that they like most. Some people may like to see that Ma Kali or Ganesh or all those things. He said, look, it is not good to look for that kind of vision. You will be terrified to see his power. I mean, that's what happened in the Gita, which we are discussing on alternate Saturdays, the Vishwarup Darshana. So Krishna grants him, gives him special divine sight with which he can see. But very soon you will see in the subsequent verses, you will find that Arjuna is so terrified, he said, please withdraw that form. Let me see you as you were before, like a friend. I want to see you, Krishna, as a friend, as a charioteer, as a guide, as a philosopher. I don't want to see your cosmic form. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna said, you will be terrified when you see his power. In fact, there is another incident very pertinent which explains why Sri Ramakrishna did not grant these visions to some of the devotees. One was his own nephew, Hriday. Hriday Ram thought that all these devotees, Bhavanath and all, they are talking Rakal, they are talking of wonderful visions, and I have served Sri Ramakrishna for so long. Why does he not grant me that some divine experience so that I can boast? Of course, he was not interested more in the vision. He just wanted some popularity so that he can tell devotees and maybe get some money. So that was his intention. But he wanted that I should also, I have a right to. Then Thakur said, see, just serve me. That will serve, that will do everything for you. That will conduce to your welfare. You just continue as you have been doing, and that will be enough for your life. He was not ready to accept this argument. He said, no, all of them are having, I should also have wish. Then one day, Thakur was little upset. So he said, okay, I'll give you the vision. And he just touched his chest. Of course, he could give visions, just experiences, just by physical touch or even by will. But he touched his chest. And immediately, Sri Ramakrishna got converted into light. He just saw Sri Ramakrishna disappearing. And he himself got converted into another small light. And both these lights were so bright, shining. And he's, for the time being, for that moment, he just felt that we have become bodiless. And to experience that bodilessness is a wonderful, you just get rid of all the limitations. And it was such a joyous state that Hriday, of course, his body was still there, but the stage of spiritual awareness that was created by Sri Ramakrishna temporarily. He knew he could not stay in this state for long. And Hriday started shouting loudly, oh, my uncle, now we have become divine beings. Now what are we doing here in Dakshineshwar? Let us go all over the world. And all those things, he started shouting. Then Thakur got angry and then just touched his chest. They used to say, Sala, go back to your old state. Why are you making such a big fuss? I have these visions day and night, and I don't get perturbed. I just don't lose my mental balance. And you are shouting and you are creating such a commotion, because Thakur could see that he is having that vision, but at the same time he's getting overwhelmed and shouting, and people around are wondering whether he's mad or whether he's normal. So when that happened, you will find that Sri Ramakrishna touched his chest. He touched his chest and said, you go back to normal. So Sri Ramakrishna says very clearly that it's not good to ask for any kind of vision of the Lord. You will be terrified when you see his power. Serving him food, dressing him with clothes, and the loving you and I relationship with him will all cease. That is far more desirable, to have a living relationship with the Lord, whom you consider to be an Ishta, either as a mother or as a father or any other relationship. There are hundreds of ways where you can communicate. And Sri Ramakrishna used to believe that the essence of sadhana is not to be overwhelmed by the greatness of the incarnation. It's far, far more, it's far, far better to have a loving relationship of you and I. That is why Sri Ramakrishna, when devotees came to him with various questions, he said, when they asked him, what is sadhana, what is upasana? So he used to say, upasana is just two things. One is, who are you? Three things. Upasana should take care of three things. One is, who are you? Whatever identity you have at present, because you are the one who is now trying to embark upon the path of sadhana or upasana. So first try to find out who you are and why are you doing sadhana. Second thing, try to find out who I am. That is what we are doing by all these talks on Great Master and Gospel, trying to know who Sri Ramakrishna is. When he said, Try to find out who you are. That is the class on the science of human possibilities, where we try to find out who we really are. And the other side, you try to find out who really Thakur is. And then what is the relationship between us? That's all of sadhana you have to do. It's not that you have to understand his glories. There may be many glories. He's not discounting the fact that visions will come. Just as Krishna showed all the visions to uh, her mother, Gopala showed it to her mother, but she forgot it. For her, Gopala, the child, was that loving relationship of mother, Vatsalya Bhava or Matri Bhava with Gopala was far, far more important. She practically, so Shardanji says, every day used to show her his glory, but she was not tempted. All others would have been overwhelmed, but not Yashoda. Neither did Arjuna, in fact, because when he saw this Vishwarupa, he said, "Oh Lord, this is terrible. You please withdraw all the Vishwarupa that you are showing me. I just want you to be my friend and tell me what I should do." That is a far more practical way where I can relate myself with you. So he says, who you are, who I am, that is what Thakur used to say, and what is our relationship. That is the whole essence of spiritual life or sadhana. Then, alas, Swami Shardanji says, many times we sadly thought that the master refused our request. You see, even there was a misunderstanding. And Swamiji also one of them. It's not Hriday alone. Swamiji also felt that why I am not getting visions. Of course, for him, Sri Ramakrishna had something else to say. He was not as, he didn't treat him in the same way as Hriday. So here he says, many times we means it includes Sardhananji. Perhaps they saw that the people like Bhavnath and all are saying that they are getting visions and said, why do we not get? We are serving Sri Ramakrishna so much. We thought the master is refusing our request because he did not wish us to have these visions. That's a very common argument, and Naren also believed that. So sometimes a bold devotee, I think maybe it is referring to Naren, would beseech him passionately saying, "Sir, your grace can make the impossible possible." If he would try to avoid, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get it at the right time." He used to just dismiss that question because he knew what is the real welfare of the disciple. So anyway, he said, they would beseech him passionately saying, "Sir, if your grace is there, your grace can make the impossible possible. Please be merciful and grant me the vision of God." Everybody wants a vision as a validating experience. So at this, the master would not dismiss him, but very tenderly tell him, "My child, can I bring about anything? Can I just give you a vision? What the divine mother wills will happen." That's ultimately how we would put off these people. If the devotee would insist by saying, whatever you wish will be mother's will, because your will and mother's will, they are also not going to leave him so easily. So if the devotee is insisted saying, whatever you wish, you say that it's mother's will, but whatever you wish, whatever is mother's will, is your will. We know it for certain. And that is why, whether it is mother's will or the divine mother's will or your will, it is the same. So please grant us this. So if the devotee would insist, the master's usual reply was, "My child, I do wish that all of you would have all kinds of spiritual states and visions. But does that happen?" If that devotee still insisted, this is the second, you try to just ask them that just forget this request, go on. If that devotee still insisted with dogged faith, the master would express his love for that devotee with an affectionate look and a sweet smile. Then he would either remain silent or say, "What, my child, what more can I say?" let the mother's will be done. We see the same thing happening in the case of Akshay Kumar Sen, who was present on that day. People don't realize that on the Kalpataru day, the 1st January, he was one of the devotees who asked for his grace. He said, not now, later on. Not now. So, no, sorry, that's not Akshay Kumar Sen, that's somebody else. But Akshay also felt very repentant that he was not present on that day and he could not get Thakur's grace. So one day he went on the bank of the Ganges and started weeping, saying that, you see, what a fool I was. I was there and I knew that you are living in Kashipur. If I had come, I would have got like all the other devotees got. So he went on crying. And then suddenly he saw in flesh and blood Sri Ramakrishna came. And you all know he wrote that Sri Ramakrishna Puthi, which is a poetic description of Sri Ramakrishna's life, which even Mother, Holy Mother and Swamiji attested. That's one of a wonderful work. So just like that, not that he would not grant these visions, but he would ask them to wait for the right time. He said, let mother's will be done. It will be done. It may not be done today, but it will be done someday or the other. Even when pressed with great insistence, the master never disturbed a devotee's spiritual attitude by destroying his erroneous but firm faith. So now, for some reason, devotees would persist. He would not hurt his sentiment. If somebody believed that Sri Ramakrishna or any god or any prophet has the power to give these divine visions to them, he would not say that is not possible. He would just very quietly tell them, what more shall I say? Let the mother's will be done. Quite often, he said, we saw the master respond in that manner and heard him say repeatedly, other people, other means those who had these visions, don't destroy another's spiritual attitude, because we do not know with what attitude each one is worshipped. Each one is unique. His relationship with the Lord, that is the essence of Hindu religion or the universal religion which goes by the name of Hinduism, that each one, maybe the member of the same family, can have his own Ishta and worship God in his own way, and yet it would not be contradictory. Because there are many paths, there are different ways of looking at the world, at reality, at our conception of, at the conception of God that we find which is conducive to us. So, Sri Ramakrishna believed, as he said, Jato mat tato path, means as many paths, as many faiths, so many paths. So there are different faiths. Why do you criticize them? He finds solace, he can connect to God in that way. Yashoda found it very easy to connect to God as a child. But that doesn't mean other attitudes are wrong. Arjuna found it more comfortable to connect with Krishna as a friend, philosopher, and guide. So also you'll find there are many who consider God to be their father or the mother. Why should he just be the father in heaven? Why not a mother? Why not a son? Why not any other human relationship which we can superimpose on the Lord? That freedom is what Swami Shardanji is saying, that Sri Ramakrishna was very careful to allow everyone hold on to their faith, but at the same time not criticize others' faiths. So, an example of how one's spiritual mood can be disturbed. See, Shardanji, like a lawyer, is giving the case studies. It's not just a mere biography. You have to understand this. To understand Sri Ramakrishna, not just read a few incidents from his life and then come to some conclusion. Again and again, we have to read the painful analysis that he has made. And mind you, he wrote all these things in one of the most disturbed place, you may say, in Kolkata in those days. Udbodhan was a hotbed of madcaps, literally. I mean, with mother and his whole retinue, plus people coming, people of different attitudes coming with so many desires, thinking that, oh, if we come to mother, we'll get this, some worldly gain. You could not control. And Swami Shardanji was like a watchman, trying to filter out people who were keen to create a nuisance, who had absolutely no interest in any spirituality, but would come to mother to seek some favor, something that troubled him, some money issues, some other issues in life which they cannot solve with their own human effort. That's why mother had to be protected. And it is Swami Shardanand who took the responsibility. He was a huge figure and used to sit near the door, very kind, very motherly in his approach, and slowly he would convince them that this is not the place where you can come, and it's not a place where you can do business with God. This is a place, if you have genuine spiritual aspirations, you come, meditate, and reach the goal of life. So, how Swami Shardanji, when he wrote this, he was dealing, on one side, dealing with these people, regular, because by that time, Holy Mother had become very famous when she finally got her own house. After a long struggle, after taking a loan, even though he was a monk, he had to take a loan to build the Udbodhan building because mother had no place to stay after Sri Ramakrishna passed away. And it's not good for a widow to just move from one place to another. For some time they stayed in Vrindavan, sometime they just moving around, penniless, because there was hardly any money to support her. And not only her, but her whole team. The people who were moving with her wherever she went, and she'd never abandoned any one of them. And these monks were helpless because they had no place for themselves to stay. And how could they? So he decided to take a big risk. And he said, I'll take a loan, build a house for mother. That was in a little before 1910. And after 1910, at least mother had a fixed place to stay. And it was Swami Shardanandji who had taken a loan, and there was hardly any devotee or any so-called well-wisher who would even help him repay that loan. So he had to work on his own. He wrote this book, this wonderful book. Imagine, it was written to repay the loan. He said, if I publish these books, sell it, with that income I can slowly repay. That was the original intention. Of course, Swami Vivekananda wanted him to write this biography because he himself did not have time. He passed away quite early. In fact, so it was Swami Shardanandji who provided all the material to Max Muller in Oxford University, who published a small book, Sri Ramakrishna, His Life and Sayings. He just published it verbatim without even changing anything, maybe a few sentences here and there. But it was published in his name. Of course, he was a famous Oriental scholar. So naturally, Oxford University, when it published, that was the first major life of Sri Ramakrishna, which was available to the English-speaking world. That was actually compiled by Swami Shardanandji. That task was given by Swamiji. He said, see, he wants to write a biography. You please supply him. So he nicely wrote a small book. If you read the Max Muller's book now, it's published as his book. It was just sent to him. Maybe he did a little bit of editing and just published it. So that book, the preparations he started making for giving to Max Muller, that was long ago. That came handy. And then he started writing these 5 big volumes, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasang, which was originally published in Bengali. So there he found time in the midst of all this administration. Plus, he was the General Secretary of the Ramakrishna Mission. So all the issues, new centers, administrative complexities, everything he was dealing with on one side, dealing with these crazy people in and around Udbodhan, and at the same time writing this book whenever he got time. He managed to get some time out of this busy routine, serve Holy Mother, see that she is not disturbed. At least the last 10 years of her life, he saw to it that she was not disturbed much. So this, in spite of that, you see the meticulous detail with which he has written this book. So it leaves absolutely no room for any doubt. Anybody who wants to know what spirituality is, in fact, Swami Vivekananda mentions this. You can't understand what Vedas and Vedanta are unless you read them in the light of the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. It's not just a claim made by a disciple. Vivekananda had read almost all the great books of the world. He knew what he was speaking when he made this remark. He said, unless you cannot understand the Vedas and the Upanishads, or for that matter, any other religious text in the world, unless you read it, because Sri Ramakrishna's main job was not to create a new sect, a new religion, which other prophets did. His purpose was to recharge the already existing religions and religious faiths which had lost its essence. So, Sarva Dharma Swarupine, what does it mean? Literally, if you translate, he was the Swarupa, means he was the representative of all religions. So you may ask the question, how can he be representative of Christianity or Buddhism or any other religion? The sense of behind this prayer, which Swami Vivekananda composed, is that he spoke of the essence behind all religions, the spiritual essence behind all religions, which you need to understand your own religion. He didn't create a new religion. So Sri Ramakrishna helps a Christian to become a better Christian, to understand his Christ better. He helps a Buddhist to understand his Buddha better, the real essence of Buddhism better. It helps a Hindu, a Vaishnava, to become a more devoted Vaishnava, or it helps a Shaivite or any other sect of within Hinduism who have been quarreling and fighting for ages. It's not just the religions are fighting each other, the different sects within Hinduism. So to remove all those obstacles, or to remove all the impediments in the spiritual progress, to explain the essence of Hindu religion, so he came. So before we start this is a big topic where Swami Vivekananda, he is giving an example in this of a case where what happens to a person if you disturb his spiritual mood. We should not take this lightly. This is very important. That's why if one is developing in a particular spiritual mood, he or particular faith, with genuine earnestness, it is a sin to say that what you are following is wrong. That's where fanaticism can be a curse. You can't have one religion for everybody. In fact, Swami Vivekananda said in London when he spoke, I wish that each one of us has his own religion. And that is true. Because no two people are alike. No two people have the same. Everyone, even the fingerprints are different. That's how fingerprint technology works. You may say that there are so many billion, 7, 8 billion people living in the world. Not one fingerprint matches. So if there is so much of variety, why can't there be so much of choice for a person to practice his or her own religion? That is the ideal condition which Swami Vivekananda said, which of course is not practical. You can't expect people who have faith in their religion to give it up so easily, or have his own religion. They think it is blasphemy even to think of this. How can 5 people in the same house belong to different religion? We are born into one religion, we'll die into that religion. So to show that how within the same, they are all followers of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda and others. But Thakur or Sri Ramakrishna trained them separately. He would not advise another disciple who had a particular bent of mind and a particular spiritual mood which he was pursuing. And he was very particular that should not be disturbed. Though he kept the flock together, he saw to it that you don't just confuse each other. You be faithful to what is your spiritual mood. That is why when what he spoke to Narendra, the books he asked him to read were not the same books he asked Rakal to read. So that's why later on, after his passing away, since Swami Vivekananda was the leader, some of his own disciples asked him, you say one thing to one person, you say another thing to another person. He says, yes, I say many things, just as my master did. But you take what appeals to you. And not only take what appeals to you, but stick to it. The idea is, at some stage of our life, we have to stick to something. That's the purpose behind all our initiation. And spiritual initiation means now you take a resolution that I am taking this path very seriously. No more exploration, no more trying to find out what suits me. If you believe that you need one path to stick on to, otherwise you will be just floating around, reading one thing today, another thing today. So Swami Vivekananda used to say, reading is necessary to a certain stage, to attain a certain stage. He gave a beautiful example in one of his talks on Jnana Yoga. He said, intellect, you Westerners make so much of this intellectual understanding and academic knowledge and all those things. Intellect, according to the Indian tradition, according to true spirituality, intellect is just a street cleaner. If there is a road, it can clean the street for you, but it can't make you walk. To walk, you need another inspiration. You have to walk yourself. You can't expect once the street is cleaned that your journey is. Street cleaning is necessary. You can't walk over mounds of dirt and garbage. Obviously, you can't do that. So to remove the garbage, to remove the dust and all those things which are obstructions on your path, you need the intellect. After that, as Thakur used to say, you need one thorn to remove the other thorn. Then you have to throw away both. You don't need that intellect anymore. Then you have to settle down and focus on something that will give you tangible results, something that will give you the experience you desire, or the goal, to attain the goal that you ultimately want to attain. We may not get it in this life, but at least we know that we have started our journey and progressing on a particular path which is good for us. And as Sri Ramakrishna again said, that it is better not to disturb others' faith, and see that your path may not tally exactly with somebody else's path. But at the same time, you have to know that there are certain general principles of sadhana, which he, if you see the first so many paragraphs he has devoted to what sadhana is. So there are some universal principles which cannot be compromised with, that you can't say, as Jesus said, God and mammon cannot go together. Now, these are the general principle. You can't say only Christianity believes in that. Hinduism also believes, Buddha also says, you can't have temporary things and permanent things together. You can't have both. It's like, it's not possible to have both at the same time. Either you align yourself with the Purusha or the eternal one, or you align yourself with a changing world and suffer its consequences. Prakriti never says you withdraw from me, because she is attracting us both ways. On one side, she's telling us, get confused, get more involved in life. Good luck to you if you are enjoying that experience. That's why Swamiji said, I don't pity those people, because no matter how degraded you become, the circle has to come up. He said, according to the cyclical theory, he said, how much, when you see Girish's life, then how much evil can you do? After that, there will come a stage when you have to take an upward turn. So Hinduism never believes in straight line or eternal damnation if you commit certain sins. No, and even the worst sinner one day has to come up, because all this experience, Prakriti is kind enough. If you see Patanjali's last few sutras, he said she is a kind mother. She'll beat you, she will thrash you, and then take you through all the experiences and take you back to the source. That is the role of mother or Prakriti. It's not that she is always kind. That is where the conception of Kali comes. Why is mother so terrible and so unkind to us? Why can't she be pleasant, always smiling, always giving only the good things of life? No, Indian philosophers or Indian Vedas said that Prakriti's nature is like that. If you go towards Purusha, she'll be assisting you. That is sadhana. If you go against Purusha or against your eternal nature, not maybe you may say it is, why does she inspire you to do that? She can easily inspire you. Of course, she is giving you the choice. That freedom to choose is given to us. But if we deliberately choose, perhaps she allows you to go, but at some stage you take a U-turn and come back, knowing fully well that this is not the path. The ultimate hope lies in aligning myself to the eternal, or the Purusha, or the Brahman, or the God, or the Spirit, which is changeless, which is full of peace, which is full of eternal peace. So that is what he's trying to convey. And don't disturb somebody's spiritual mood. The beautiful story is there. We'll discuss it next time. So there are many things which he used to take Naren away from the other disciples. Just be very careful that others are not listening, and tell him to read certain things, which Naren, of course, obviously understood. So that's why he used to warn his other brother disciples. You see, what he said to me is meant for me. It's not meant for you. You do exactly what he has told you to do, because he knows your spiritual nature. This is a very beautiful example how he never allowed anybody's spiritual mood to be preserved, not to be disturbed. That is the story of Shivratri day on Kashipur Garden, which we'll take up in the next class. Is there any question?
There is one question, Swamiji. It says, the study of gospel on your own, without any help from spiritually wise men, is not fruitful, isn't it?
The question is, I'm reading out, the question has been asked in the chat message that reading of gospel on our own will not be fruitful. No, that's not the case at all. If there is guidance available, if somebody, there is a lot of guidance if you want, there are so many wonderful talks, but each one has to assimilate the ideas of the gospel in his own way. That is true. It will be fruitful, whichever way you approach the gospel. The very fact that M has taken the pains to make it accessible to the common man itself shows that it will be fruitful, whichever way you approach it. If you want it to be more fruitful, then you can have a discussion on it, ask somebody who has been reading it. It is just like any other academic subject. You go to the person who has done a PhD, you obviously will know more things about that book or that subject. So it's like that. It's not that it is useless. Nothing is useless. Even if by accident you come across gospel and read it, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna Kathamrut, even that is a great, blessing. Okay.
One last question. In the gospel, M describes Thakur as a Sahaja, like simple, and then cites a song about the simple one. Please explain more about being simple.
Can you read out the song? You see, if you want me to explain the song, in general, I can say one thing. If he is praising Sahaja, Sahaja means simplicity or guilelessness. As you know, Jesus pointed out to some young children, suddenly turned to some adults there who wanted to follow him. He said, you will not be able to enter the kingdom of God unless you be like these small children, innocent, pure. So that is what Sahaja means. Of course, I do not know what is the text of that poem. If you can type it or send it, maybe we can discuss it in another class. But Sahaja means it is the most difficult thing in our lives is to be simple. It's a paradox, but it is true, because our education right from day one is designed in such a way that it makes us complicated. The more we study, the more complicated we normally, I'm not saying it's always true, because there are some people who can read between the lines and then understand. But I'm talking of the secular education that has been designed in such a way that it just serves the purpose of complicating our lives. Having said that, to be simple, why is it difficult? Because a child is born with lot of simplicity, lot of innocence, lot of purity. It cannot distinguish between, uh, it does not have the idea of hatred. Whoever comes to that child, he accepts them as true, as he has so much faith in anyone who says anything to him. It is only when he grows up or she grows up, we tell the child that this is wrong, you be careful of this, you be careful of that. So all the training has to be undone. Swamiji made a wonderful remark in one of the London lectures. He said, education robs the child of his innocence. It's something, a very bold statement to make, which will make our educationists think. He, of course, perhaps Nivedita was there. He said the unfortunate part is that education serves one purpose: to rob the child of the innocence he was born with, and spirituality is a process by which that innocence is returned to that child, to that man. So when you start your spiritual training, obviously it has to make you childlike, or at least make you simple, sahaja. That there is a whole sect within Hinduism which is known as Sahaja Yoga. So it is something like going back to your simple ways, not complicating life further by adding problems. If we cannot solve the present problems, at least it is a good idea not to add more problems. So Sahaja in general means that. But as a sect, Sahaja, there is a particular sadhana which these followers of the Sahaja Marga, whether they understand the spirit or not, that's a different. All these tantras, Vedas, Upanishads, they have wonderful ideas, but the only thing is one has to understand the essence and practice them in the right spirit. So if the text is there, I may comment upon it, but Sahaja means basically going back to the original state, which is the state with which we were born with. That is pure and innocent. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.